You know, last year, since we're talking about youth, last year was a very interesting year. For the very first time in the history of China, China's population declined. And I think in the next 18 to 24 months, because we haven't done a census in about a decade, so we don't actually know how many Indians there are, we have an estimate. So either this year or sometime certainly in the next 18 months, India will become the most populous nation in the world. By the way, they've said we already have, but we don't really know. So I'm just buying ourselves a bit of margin for error here. We haven't done a census in a while. But actually, so think about this, right? Like literally within the next 18 months, for sure, because that they've run all the statistics and that's the margin for error, India will become the most populous nation in the world. Now, what's very interesting is not that, since we're talking about youth. What's very interesting is, by the end of this century, which is 2100, which interestingly, it's shocking to think about this, right? Which is only 77 years from now. Actually, I'm just looking around the room. Some of you will still probably be building your companies. Srikanth and I may not be. I don't know about you, G. What you'd be up to. Because medicine is a marvelous thing these days. What's happening? By the year 2100, India will have 1.55 billion people. Any guesses? Now, China, by the way, right now is 1.4 billion, okay? China has 1.4 billion people. Any guesses what China's population will be by the end of this century? Let's take a guess. Anybody want to take a guess? So China's population today is 1.4 billion. Last year was the first year where China's population went down. In fact, every month now there are fewer Chinese babies being born than Chinese that don't exist. So what do you think the population of China will be by the end of this century, which is only 77 years from now? Any guesses? 700 million. Other guesses? 1 billion, okay. Less than 1 billion, okay. Sakshi, any guesses? No, this is a very important, because this is the Ministry of Youth, because we're talking about it's extraordinary. Any other guesses? Actually, you're both we're close. 770 million. So I want you to imagine a world 77 years from now where India has a population of 1.55 billion. And by the way, India's population peaks at 1.7 billion in the year 2067. Unless, of course, something changes, which could. Imagine a world where India has 1.55 billion people and China only has 770 million. That's extraordinary, right? And every other country, by the way, almost every other country except a few countries in Africa will actually have severely declining populations. So I think the thing with Indian youth and India more broadly is India will actually power the world. And I think that's where, in many ways, what has started today, which is the new entrepreneurial revolution, right? That's really started, I'd say, after liberalization in 1991. As you rightly pointed out, Secretary, we have 5,000 years of entrepreneurship. But quite frankly, we had about 250-year gap, pause, which actually restarted. Unfortunately, during the license era, that 50 years or so of the license Raj era, we kind of didn't quite get there. But certainly since 1991, there's been 2 or 3 waves: IT services wave, the pharma wave, the auto components wave, and now obviously the technology-led innovation internet wave, right? Clearly, India today is at a very interesting place when it comes to entrepreneurship, innovation, startups. And there is no question, and today what we are seeing is startups that are innovating just about every industry that you can imagine, both in India, but also for the world, right? For a long time, our ecosystem was really all about, every 2 years, there'd be a big trend. Those of you that are building e-commerce businesses, are any of you building e-commerce businesses? Or brands or consumer products? Yeah, of course, yes, congratulations. Sold a company recently, made a lot of money. You should make sure you fully engage him into this Youth20. So if you go back to 2015 and 16, it was all about e-commerce. Then it became about ride-hailing. Then it became about ed-tech. Then it became about fintech, right? But today, if you look at India and the startup ecosystem, there is innovation everywhere, in every single core sector or core industry of the nation, right? Whether it's agriculture, there are over 1,000 startups. There are over 2,000 new consumer brands, right? You built one. Mamaearth has just listed, is filed their DHRP to go public. There are several thousand new brands, right? You look at digital health, you look at ed tech, You look at financial services or fintech. And then even if you look at some new emerging exciting sectors like climate tech, right? Some of the most interesting battery companies are actually going to be new battery chemistry companies. In fact, one of the world's most interesting new battery chemistry companies is in Noida. You know, they're going to use zinc. They're building the world's first zinc battery, and it works. It's powering actually a Shell station in Bangalore, right? So in many ways, across all sectors, you know, imagine every sector that you can imagine today, Indian entrepreneurs are innovating in those sectors. And I think what we're very excited about today is we already have the largest youth population in the world. We're going to have twice the size of the Chinese population in literally like 77 years. And quite frankly, we have an opportunity not just to innovate for India and transform India in every sector that we have in India, but we have not just the potential, actually the responsibility. Because imagine, you know, if like we have 1.55 billion people and the whole world only has like 7, you know, we actually have a responsibility to power the world. And I think hopefully today through the brainstorm sessions, what we'll get is lots of ideas that all of you have around what can we do to unleash the youth of India, right? Whether it's unleash them in entrepreneurship, whether it's unleash them in terms of getting them more engaged in whether it's entrepreneurship, whether it's governance, whether it's policy, whether it's, you know, improving our communities, and also what are some of the important ideas around how do we make our youth more productive by dramatically improving education, by giving them access to opportunities. So thank you for joining us. I hope all of you have a terrific brainstorm over the next couple of hours.